directors, if I may. So I was recently in the administration as an assistant secretary for health and an admiral in the public health service. And I got to know COVID pretty closely, being on the president's task force at the White House. And we recognize that there are a lot of people in uniform who do a lot of things for our country, but there are also civilians who make marked contributions that really do change the world in a way that the U.S. government could never do. Peter, aside from everything else he has done, I think has made a marked contribution to the world in recovery from COVID. Because tourism is not just go and see nice places, it's what we are as humans. To go see different cultures, to understand that we're all common under the same God, that we appreciate other people's backgrounds and their cultures, and that makes us bigger. And there's probably no one metric that will say we're over COVID than when we could travel to international destinations again and visit everyone. Now, we can go through a lot of things, you know, the World Tourism Network, which you're an executive director of, with 120 nations represented, trying to bring the world back together. You're probably as responsible for Saudi Arabia and Israel getting together with your, your work in Saudi Arabia. So in my role, my former role, I'm going to assume that identity. I wanted to present Peter something on behalf of the nation. So if you could stand up. Okay. So I'm going to present Peter officially with the United States Medal for Outstanding Civilian Service for COVID-19. I'm going to tell you about it a little bit. I hope I could pin this on correctly without my glasses on. And if I stab you, it's...
It's okay, I know a doctor.
We're going to work on this.
He's been vaccinated.
See if I can get the other one on. So this is reserved for civilians who've made a significant contribution to supporting the end of the global pandemic. It has a lot of symbolism on it. It has sort of the globe in the background signifying we designed this. I designed it. My team, we got it approved through all the U.S. government channels, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The globe signifying the global pandemic. It has a shield, again, a typical shield against evil and the pandemic. It has the chalice of Hygeia, the goddess of preventative medicine. It has the two snakes of Asclepius, the father of Hygeia, and they stand for wisdom and health. And the actual colors on the ribbon, the coronavirus signifying the sun. So you see the red and orange glow. On the outside is red, white, and blue, with the United States attacking and ultimately defeating the coronavirus. And green, of course, the symbol or color for hope and for health. So Peter, on behalf of the nation.
Well, thank you.
Wow.
I don't know what to say.
Aloha and good afternoon. My name is Juergen Steinmetz, joining you from livestream.travel in Honolulu, Hawaii. And you just listened to Admiral Brad Gerard. And Peter will tell us more who he is, because Peter is the proud recipient of an award. And this award also is mentioning Peter's activities with the World Tourism Network. So we're all quite proud of you, Peter. And I don't even want to start with the weather because it's not really significant. It's a little bit on the rainy side here today, but I think you must have had a real sunny day after your 75th birthday party and getting one of the most prestigious awards from a former Assistant Secretary of Health.
Yeah, it was a really a day of sunshine, not only in the sky, but I think also in my own life. And it came as a total surprise. Admiral Gerard is, of course, one of the most famous people in the public health sector, and was really one of the leaders in the United States fight against COVID. And he has been following everything we do. He's a regular listener to our broadcasts. And he was very much aware of the World Tourism Network. And though the award was given to me, in a sense, it really should go to the everyone who's participated in the World Tourism Network, because as you heard, he understands that you cannot have a world back to normal if you don't have tourism. And so I was the recipient of a special award that the United States government has developed for those people fighting against COVID-19. And this is the highest civilian award that the U.S. Public Health Service gives. So you cannot get an award that's higher than this. And what it's really is recognition that everything that we're all doing to try to find methodologies, find ways to unite the world so that tourism helps the world to come back to where we need to be. And he was very much aware of our Health Without Borders initiative and the importance of that Health Without Borders, because Dr. Giroir, who's a world famous physician, understands very clearly that viruses don't stop at a nation's borders. And especially in today's world where there's travel, there's unfortunately human trafficking, there's illegal immigration that's taking place in so many areas, and people are carrying their diseases with them. And so the fact that the World Tourism Network has created an international set of awareness to work together, so not only rich countries, but also poor countries have an idea of the importance of vaccinations, the importance of getting people back to normal and back to life. And that's what this award is all about. It's given to me, I'm the recipient, but in a sense, I'm nothing more than a symbol for the entire tourism industry. And I think everyone in the World Tourism Network should be so proud, because this is a group of people. They're not the wealthiest people in the world. They're not the biggest industries in the world. What we compose of in the World Tourism Network is the small and the medium businesses coming together and creating a sense of replicating the ideas that were expressed at the WTTC by the president of Colombia, former president of Colombia, that every nation has to work together. And in that sense, I support what President Biden also has been saying, that if any of us are weak, all of us are weak. So we all have to work together to eradicate illness. And the World Tourism Network is a key leader in this major initiative.
No, absolutely, Peter, and don't be too humbled. You're a key person, not only for the World Tourism Network. You have done this for more than World Tourism Network is alive, for it is only since December, and you've made great contributions to travel and tourism. And
of course, one of the things, as you heard, he recognized the fact of all our work in tourism security, and the fact that tourism security brings not only protects the tourism industry from people who might be not so good, but it also helps us all work together to realize that we're all one common family living on a very small planet in one small corner of the universe. And we have to band together to help each other, because as people, as a human race, we have more in common than we have issues that divide us.
yeah. So today it was also a good day for World Tourism Network. We have actually been in the news now 3 times today. And the other part, World Tourism Network has supported the move by the Biden administration in working on the relaxation of the patent for vaccine like Pfizer or Moderna to be more widely, be able to be produced more widely in the third world specifically. Because as you rightfully say, and I know you're not a big friend of President Biden, but as you rightfully say, you recognize that no one is safe until everyone is safe. So
And, you know, I think like every American, if you voted for President Biden or not, you hope that he will be a success. And I think we all have to support where he says something and I agree with, I will support him.
and that's really how it should be. You know, I hope, without getting politically correct or incorrect here. We all should work together, specifically when it comes to the COVID situation. That is something what is an issue for everyone in the world. And hopefully it's not going to divide the world. It brings the world together. And there's a good, one of the good opportunities. Also,
Absolutely.
for Tourism Network today, uh, welcomed Travel Manitoba as one of our members. And Manitoba, of course, is known as the Canada's heartbeat because it's kind of the Midwest in Canada. And
Yes.
I've been to Winnipeg a number of times. Really interesting city to visit, good food, and they have the Human Rights Museum. So it's something you really should, if you have a chance to travel to Winnipeg, that's something you should really put on your bucket list
Yeah.
to visit the Human Rights Museum. And so we're very happy that Manitoba is joining us, and
Manitoba, yeah.
Manitoba will play a leading role in the future of rebuilding tourism into Canada. In other news today, the IATA welcomes the G20 push to restart tourism. Well, we see how that goes. And LATAM Group zero waste to landfill by 2027 and carbon neutral, big plans. And Europe is starting a new charter airline called European Air.
So you think that these signs are part of the fact that the tourism industry is starting to get back on its feet and we're going to be seeing people traveling more? Certainly, I think a big event will be different types of travel. For example, the CDC today came out with some guidelines for summer camps. Some of them are very strange guidelines. Like they tell children they have to wear a mask except if they fainted or are unconscious. Well, I'm not quite sure how, if you're unconscious, you also do not have to wear a mask while swimming. But considering the chances of children getting COVID is very small, you really kind of wonder why they would make those guidelines. Interestingly enough, the medical profession much of the medical profession has opposed the CDC. And so that's a real problem in tourism, because if people start losing faith in the CDC, that will be a major problem, both in the United States and in Europe. So I don't know quite what they were thinking, but summer camps are an important part of the tourism industry, a very important part. They're big business in the United States, in Europe, in Israel, in parts of Africa, Australia. And also having summer camps allows couples, families, when your children are at summer camp, then the couple can travel someplace else. So it's really intertwined with the whole. I know people don't think of summer camps as part of the tourism industry, but they really are a very important part of the tourism industry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And there is a lot of conflicting information. There has been a lot of conflicting information over the year when it comes to CDC. An issue we reported yesterday here in our home state, it appears tourists were not really counted when in the COVID numbers. What actually Hawaii did, it counted anyone visiting and who contracted COVID, and even our strict policies, there are people, and we heard this from a nurse who works in a testing center. So when they're counted, they immediately counted in the state's numbers. But 2 days later, when the investigation finds out they're from another state, these numbers are taken off the Hawaii system and then put into the home states or home country system. So there is a lot of misinformation and maneuvering still going on. And we can only all work together to get rid of this virus, I think. Then we get rid of all these other problems as well.
Well, we're seeing also, though, some hopes. It's a little too early for us to give too much detail, but tomorrow, both of us will be dealing with some new possible, and I want to emphasize the word possible, tourism initiatives in the Maldives. And that could be really exciting for the Indian Ocean basin. We're seeing a number of countries work together. Of course, in the Muslim world, we're coming toward the very end of Ramadan, and that means that people will be a whole switching back to daytime versus nighttime eating, and normality of the other of 11 months of the year will be returning. Right now, this is an interesting time for someone to travel to the Muslim world because they get to see a really unique experience, and all sorts of special festivals will be taking place, especially May 11th, which is not far away, dealing with the end of the Ramadan period and all sorts of special festivals that will be happening. So if you're going to the Middle East, this would be a very interesting time to travel there and to learn lots about what's happening, assuming you can get in, because there's not a COVID restriction. So that's unfortunately in today's world, that's something we always have to take into consideration.
No, absolutely. And Peter, again, congratulations to your award.
Thank you. And really congratulations to all of us, because I think what Dr. Gerard was recognizing was the wonderful work that the World Tourism Network is initiating. It's such a young organization, and yet it's done so much. And I would hope that other organizations will begin to emulate all the work that we're doing.
Wonderful, Peter. Well, I guess we talk to you tomorrow.
Yes.
And please stay tuned. If you wanted to look at this or any other events, you can go to our YouTube channel. Go to youtube.com/eTurboNews or youtube.com/travelnews. It's the same. And you can watch all our various discussions Peter and I had, and much more, many of our Zoom sessions from around the world. And you always find it, of course, also at livestream.travel. Peter,
and one of the nice things I think that people now see, there's a wonderful red button that I looked at. And when you want to hear something, you just push that button. You can't miss it. And I really think it's a big help in helping people get right to the conversation they want to hear. So I think everyone's really going to like this new concept that we've come up with. I hope so.
Yeah, no, thank you very much. And the red button to subscribe is important because you get notifications when there are new events. And as you can see, we had some changes on our website too. What makes it maybe a little bit more
fun. More fun.
You can actually now, in order to hear our live stream, you will see there is a live stream, but you actually have to push on play. It's not going to start playing automatically in the middle of your other conversations. So we keep it up, we leave it up to you. If you want to watch the live stream, you'll be notified, you can see it. Just click on it and you can join in.
And what we're doing is we're empowering people so they can listen to it when they want.
Thank you, Peter. And
take care. Good night from Texas. I guess good afternoon to Hawaii. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Peter. You have a good
Wacky UK hotel bans vax holes, mask holes and sheep. The Nightingale Hotel is no stranger to controversy. Hotel brands pandemic rules obedient guests, sheep and woke occultists. Hotel owner described himself on Twitter as an anti-lockdown, anti-woke truth seeker. Gothic rock and roll themed Nightingale Mansion Hotel in the village of Shanklin on England's Isle of Wight has announced a complete ban on guests who wear masks and support vaccination against COVID-19. Branding the pandemic rules obedient guests, sheep and woke occultists, the hotel published the anti-lockdown decree on the homepage of its website, declaring, "Red-pilled guests only. If you are not awake, you are a sheep, and we are not a field for you to graze in. We accept only mask-exempt people. No NWO woke occultists or their minions," the hotel continued, concluding that mask holes and vax holes were not welcome on the property. For those who've not seen The Matrix, red pilled refers to the choice between taking the red pill and being enlightened, and the blue pill and remaining in ignorance. NWO stands for New World Order, a conspiracy theory hypothesizing that there's a secretly emerging totalitarian world government. According to Urban Dictionary, a vaxhole is someone who has been fully vaccinated for the COVID-19 virus and brags about it, and, well, the meaning of mask holes should be self-evident. The message presumably came straight from the hotel's owner, Dino Joachim, who before his account was suspended described himself on Twitter as an anti-lockdown, anti-woke truth seeker. Though many like-minded Brits had praised the hotel online for banning masks, one sympathetic commenter decided not to book a room after realizing the establishment was dog-friendly. On the verge of making a booking until I saw that you allow dogs. Aside from the people who are allergic to them, who on earth wants to stay in a room where dogs have been, protested the woman on Twitter. No masks good. Dogs bad. The hotel responded by calling the woman a Karen and added bluntly, "If you don't like dogs, we don't like you. Take your money and your criticism and shove it up your ass." The Nightingale Hotel is no stranger to controversy. In 2018, its exterior featured a mural that included twinkling stars, eyes, and a red-haired woman grinning with her tongue sticking out. It had to be altered after the council's planning department lodged a complaint and now includes an apparently more acceptable portrait of Amy Winehouse.
Secret COVID-19 study in Italy? Calculations provided by Mueller were up to 1,200 victims per day with RT of 1.25, which translates to up to 1,200 to 1,300 victims a day. So far since February 2020, Mueller has gotten the numbers right. A committee of 24 experts advising the Italian government on the pandemic was decisive and reported to curb the reopening. The calculations provided by Mueller were up to 1,200 victims per day with RT of 1.25. RT is the measure of how quickly the virus is spreading. So Palazzo Chigi, also known as Chigi Palace, which is the seat of the Council of Ministers and the official residence of the Prime Minister of Italy, rejected the idea to free all. So far since February 2020, Mueller has gotten the numbers right. The study, which was never made public by the government, but which publication Il Corriere could analyze and make available on April 16 at the Comitato Tecnico Scientifico CTS, a committee of 24 experts advising the Italian government on the pandemic, was decisive and reported at Palazzo Chigi to curb the reopening, considering it too risky as requested by the leader of the Lega Party, Matteo Salvini. The latest RT detected on symptomatic cases, referring to the period between March 31 and April 13, is 0.81. This is the starting point. In the projections there are only calculations, nothing about what to reopen and what not. These are choices that belong to the government led by Italy Prime Minister Mario Draghi. There are hypotheses on the table, including if RT returns to 1, which is more than likely following the reopening between now and July 15. According to Mueller's forecasts, we should continue to deal with about 200-300 deaths a day. If it rises to 1.1, the risk is a steady increase in deaths up to 600 per day in mid-July, 300 as of June 24. The disaster was 1.25, up to 1,200 to 1,300 victims a day. Of course, all of this applies without additional restrictions. To simplify, in a scenario of free all, another simulation illustrated by Mueller shows that if the reboot had been postponed to May 12, the daily deaths could have been half at 100. The reason? Delaying the restart by 2 weeks would have meant opening with a number of daily cases much lower than the current one. It is the so-called incidence, which inevitably brings with it a percentage of deaths. The latest CTS report, updated on April 18, counts 157 cases per week for every 100,000 inhabitants. In order for the epidemic to be under control, we need to reach 50. Without reopening, which affects the rise in the infection curve, in 15 days we could have gone down quite a bit. In this case, always with a RT of 1, that is, with an infected who infects another, we would have had a lower starting number of infections with the obvious consequence of fewer deaths in prospect. Also on July 15, with a RT of 1.1, there would have been 200. While with a RT of 1.25 there would have been several hundred anyway. Now there is a bit of margin. But it is minimal. We cannot make the RT rise above 1, and we already started from 0.81. Therefore, the treasury we have, according to Mueller's analysis, is 0.2. And we have already played with it for a while, as shown by the slide shown at the CTS with the restart of school in attendance. Certainly on the basis of Mueller's calculations, the alternative which would not have displeased some members of the CTS could have been to reopen in May with a lower incidence. The fear is that being high, the contagion curve could grow back quickly, forcing new closures. But here political choices came into play, the calculated risk invoked by Mario Draghi as it were. Mueller's accounts take into reason the lowering of the lethality of the virus induced by vaccinations. Thanks to vaccines, COVID is already killing less, and at some point, it will become comparable to a seasonal flu, that is, going from 11 deaths out of 1,000 infected, to 1. A first date hypothesized by Italy think tank Institute for International Political Studies ISPI in this sense was June 25. But everything is linked to the pace at which the vaccination campaign is proceeding and, above all, to those who are immunized. The frail must first be protected. Palazzo Chigi, along with Military General Francesco Figliuolo, expects to accelerate further on vaccinations, reaching to protect 80% of the frail by May 25. And the reopening will be gradual. Beyond the accounts, the awareness of the CTS is that much will now depend on individual behaviors. Otherwise, all that remains is to close down. #rebuilding travel.
Airlines for America announces 2021 Nuts and Bolts Award recipients. 2021 A4A Engineering, Maintenance and Materiel Council (EMMC) Nuts and Bolts Award presented. Awards were presented during the Aviation Week Network's MRO Americans virtual conference. FedEx's Manager of Regulatory Compliance (FAA) and Boeing's Director of Engineering for Customer Support were award recipients. Airlines for America (A4A), the industry trade organization for the leading U.S. Airlines, has announced the 55th Annual A4A Engineering, Maintenance and Materiel Council (EMMC) Nuts and Bolts Award to FedEx's Manager of Regulatory Compliance (FAA) Bill Williams and Boeing's Director of Engineering for Customer Support Sergio Bustamante. The Nuts and Bolts Award recognizes individuals who demonstrate outstanding service and achievements in the engineering or maintenance fields within the commercial aviation industry. The awards were presented today during the Aviation Week Network's MRO Americans virtual conference. Bill Williams. Williams has been a member of the QA team at FedEx for more than 20 years, working as manager for surveillance at heavy maintenance locations and manager of the Airworthiness Directive Control Group (ADCG). He began his career with the U.S. Air Force as a jet engine mechanic, later moving to Cessna Aircraft, America West Airlines and Saudi Arabian Airlines. Bill has been a primary contributing author of multiple FAA advisory circulars and was a member of the Aviation Rulemaking Committee on Airworthiness Directive implementation, including several important follow-on activities. Sergio Bustamante. Bustamante made his mark when, in his new role as fleet chief for the B737 fleet, the world aviation industry was sent into shock waves over two 737 MAX accidents. Opening lines of communication with the world's operators, he led dozens of meetings with airlines, maintaining a continuous flow of new and updated information. His leadership throughout the grounding was exemplary, never shying away from bringing up uncomfortable discussion points from Boeing's viewpoint, and was honest and forthright throughout the grounding. He earned a worldwide following of peers during a once-in-a-lifetime event.
Holland America Line resumes Greece cruises in August. Idyllic Greek Isles features Kotar, Montenegro, Greek Isles of Kerkyra, Corfu, Thera, Santorini, and Mykonos. Ancient Wonders departs August 22 to explore Haifa, Israel, as well as Nafplion, Mykonos, and Rhodes. Adriatic Lure will sail from Piraeus to Venice, Italy, with calls at Mykonos, Kataklon, Olympia, and Crete, Chania, Greece, and Surand, Albania. Working in close coordination with the government of Greece, Holland America Line has received approval to restart cruising from Piraeus, Athens, in August with 4 departures aboard Eurodam. Bookings for these cruises will open May 6. Departing August 15 and 29, the idyllic Greek Isles itinerary features Kotar, Montenegro, plus the Greek Isles of Kerkyra, Corfu, Thera, Santorini, and Mykonos. Ancient Wonders departs August 22 to explore Haifa, Israel, as well as Nafplion, Mykonos, and Rhodes in Greece. Both options can be combined to form a longer, back-to-back 14-day collector's voyage. A 7-day Adriatic Lure itinerary departing September 5 will sail from Piraeus to Venice, Italy, with calls at Mykonos, Kataklon, Olympia, and Crete, Chania, Greece, and Surand, Albania. Additional Mediterranean cruises aboard Eurodam through the fall will be announced in the coming weeks and include ports in Italy and Greece. Eurodam returns to the United States to begin sailing its published Caribbean cruises in mid-November. Everyone at Holland America Line has been preparing for a return to service, and we are grateful to the government of Greece for allowing us to show that we can safely operate our cruises, said Gus Antorcha, president of Holland America Line. The beautiful islands of Greece have been a highlight of our Mediterranean itineraries for decades, and we are honored to be able to restart out of Athens and give our guests a memorable vacation after all this time without cruise travel. The Greek islands have been welcoming Holland America Line ships for many years, and we are proud to work together to welcome the cruise line back this summer, said Harry Theodoros, Minister of Tourism of Greece. We are sure that all visitors to Greece will once again have unique experiences to our beautiful destinations and fully enjoy the rich history, culture, and gastronomy of our nation. Cruise and stay healthy with Travel Well protocols. Holland America Line cruises from Greece are available for guests who have received their final dose of an approved COVID-19 vaccine at least 14 days prior to the beginning of the cruise and have proof of vaccination. Holland America Line guests will be required to comply with all health and safety protocols in place at the time of departure for travel to and from the ship, as well as all onboard protocols and procedures for visiting ports. Guests can find information about Greece traveler health requirements on the Visit Greece website. Additional preventive health measures under Holland America Line's Travel Well program will be in place, including health screenings, face mask requirements, physical distancing and capacity controls. The ships now feature enhanced environmental sanitation and air filtration with upgraded HVAC systems and ultraviolet technology. HEPA filters will be used in key areas as a further safeguard. In addition, medical centers will be equipped with COVID-19 testing and treatment capabilities. Holland America Line's protocols are subject to change as work continues in collaboration with medical experts and government bodies to ensure the practices evolve in line with the latest advice.
Egypt announces new set of COVID-19 restrictions. Cairo battles resurgent coronavirus. Large gatherings and concerts banned over the period of 2 weeks. All shops, malls, cafes, restaurants, cinemas and theaters to close early. Speaking at a press conference today, Egypt's Prime Minister Mustafa Madbouli said that the country's government had made important decisions to deal with a resurgent coronavirus as the holiday of Eid al-Fitr approaches. The Prime Minister announced that a new set of COVID-19 regulations and constraints will be introduced, and it will remain in effect for 2 weeks to curb the spread of the coronavirus during the last days of Ramadan and the Eid celebrations. From tomorrow, May 6 to May 21, we will close all shops, malls, cafes, restaurants, cinemas and theaters at 9 o'clock in the evening to greatly reduce the crowding witnessed in these places, Madbouli said. Large gatherings and concerts will also be banned over the period, with beaches and parks shut between May 12 and 16, Madbouli stated. The Eid celebrations, which will take place on May 12 and 13, this year fall in the middle of the government's 2-week-long period of restrictions. At the same time, a home delivery service will be allowed, but during the next 2 weeks, any meetings, conferences, events, or artistic celebrations will be prohibited in any facilities, the PM added. The government's decision comes as the COVID-19 begins to spread again in Egypt and amid fears of one of the most important dates in the Islamic calendar further exacerbating the problem.
As borders reopen, Zurich Tourism makes sustainability a priority. Zurich embarks on a bold and encompassing sustainability platform for the future. Zurich Tourism maintains a strong commitment to sustainable development. Zurich Tourism continues to raise awareness about eco-conscious development. As the world begins opening its borders to tourism, lessons from before and during the COVID-19 pandemic have highlighted the continued urgency for tourism to be sustainable. To that end, the city of Zurich, along with Switzerland as a whole, has embarked on a bold and encompassing sustainability platform for the future. Zurich Tourism maintains a strong commitment to sustainable development and has been leading by example since 1998. The organization marked one of its most important milestones in 2010, when it was among the first to sign Switzerland Tourism's Sustainability Charter, and in 2015, Zurich Tourism reinvigorated this commitment with the development of the Comprehensive Sustainability Concept 2015+, which set credible and ambitious future goals. By continuing to raise awareness about eco-conscious development, Zurich Tourism covers 3 main dimensions of sustainability: environment, economy, and society. Together with the city and canton, Zurich Tourism has adopted a comprehensive and long-term approach to the goal of positioning Zurich and the surrounding region as an international blueprint for a smart destination. At the heart of Zurich's sustainable approach are sustainable eating. Whether visitors are looking for 100% organic, locally sourced and seasonal ingredients, or entirely vegan, it is easy to find delicious and sustainable eats in Zurich. Most restaurants in the city attach great importance to the origin and seasonality of the produce they use, and many chefs buy their ingredients directly from one of Zurich's numerous weekly markets. In addition, Zurich is the proud birthplace of the world's first vegetarian restaurant, owned by the Hilton family, whose restaurants have been devoted entirely to vegetarian food since 1898. Vegetarian and vegan restaurants are some of the most popular in Zurich. City oases. As travelers venture back into the world post-COVID, they will be drawn to less crowded wide open spaces. Although Zurich is a big city, it has its fair share of off-the-beaten-path locations and not always open cultural oases. Urban adventurers will not be disappointed by the numerous hidden-away spaces in the heart of the city, from exquisitely designed gardens to particularly beautiful public institutions. Although locals are familiar with them, many tourists don't know these wonderful spots exist, making a visit to Zurich all the more special and unexpected. Some of these places are not directly on the tourist routes or have special opening hours, but they are well worth seeking out, rewarding intrepid city explorers with beautiful sights and great views. Sustainable stores. Ecologically minded travelers can also find a wide range of stores selling fairly traded and sustainably produced fashion, as well as a number of zero-waste shops. As the desire for ecologically produced clothing is becoming more widespread, designers are ensuring that their fashion is produced in a sustainable and fair manner, using recyclable fabrics, minimizing their carbon footprints and treating workers fairly. Ecologically minded shoppers can find a variety of zero-waste stores, businesses dedicated to the reduction of food waste, and shops that have completely dispensed with individual packaging. Work and leisure. As the workforce around the world transitions back from remote working to an office, businesses are already beginning to adapt to the new work-life concept. In Zurich, business and leisure can be wonderfully combined in co-working spaces, cafes, and restaurants. In former factory halls, in a bookstore, or under a railroad viaduct, Zurich's digital nomads meet other innovative young minds in the startup scene and spin new ideas in the city's creative co-working spaces and cafes. In addition to the above, Zurich has a number of other environmentally conscious projects underway, including energy-efficient buildings, a food waste program for the hospitality industry, and a city e-bike program. From tourism to infrastructure and water conservation, Zurich is on the cutting edge of sustainable technology, looking toward a more environmentally conscious and healthier future.
Families of Boeing crash victims demand Biden and Buttajik replace FAA management. Victims' families demand replacement of FAA Administrator Stephen Dixon and Safety Director Ali Barami. The demand was delivered to the Department of Transportation, DOT. Today, families expressed disappointment that the administration has not yet changed the existing management team at FAA. More than 900 family members and friends from across the world who lost loved ones in the March 2019 crash of a Boeing 737 MAX jet, flight ET-302, in Ethiopia have signed a letter demanding that President Joe Biden and Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg replace FAA Administrator Stephen Dixon, Safety Director Ali Barami, and other top leadership at the Federal Aviation Administration, FAA. The demand was delivered to the Department of Transportation, DOT, today in a meeting between top DOT officials and several ET-302 victims' family members from France, Ireland, Canada, and the U.S. The families expressed disappointment that the administration has not yet changed the existing dysfunctional, pro-industry management team at FAA and that this must be done to restore confidence in the agency. The morning meeting lasted well over an hour. Michael Stomo and Nadia Milron of Massachusetts, who lost their daughter Samaya Rose Stomo, Chris Moore of Canada, who lost his daughter Danielle, Ike Riffle of California, who lost his two sons Melvin and Bennett, Javier de Luis of Massachusetts, who lost his sister Graziella, and others from Ireland and France participated in the video meeting. It is astounding that the current leadership is still in place several months after the Biden administration took over, said Chris Moore. Congressional committees said the FAA took an adversarial position with them. Internal FAA surveys show the management is too pro-industry, giving short shrift to engineering safety. A new team must replace Administrator Steve Dixon, Ali Barami, Associate Administrator for Aviation Safety, Earl Lawrence, Executive Director, Aircraft Certification Service, and Mike Romanowski, Policy and Innovation Division Director, Aircraft Certification Service, said the 900-plus signatories in the letter. We find it difficult to believe that Ali Barami is still the FAA Safety Director, said Nadia Milron. FAA staff have complained that he is too protective of Boeing. He claimed to have no knowledge of the FAA risk assessment projecting 15 more crashes after the JT610 crash, and he told my son and me that FAA did everything right. Obviously, they did not. In the follow-up to the letter signed by hundreds of families and friends, these victims' family members asked that top officials should be replaced because they have lost the confidence of Flight ET-302, families and friends, Congress, the flying public, FAA engineers, and international regulators. We are surprised and disappointed that they are not among the holdovers from the prior administration that have been replaced. Ike Riffle said, I am still in disbelief that with all the red flags that this plane ever got certified in the first place. In a rush to get it done, Boeing and the FAA hid and ignored many safety issues that I believe would have prevented both the JT610 and ET302 tragedies. The FAA is ultimately responsible for the certification of these airplanes, and they failed us miserably. Boeing and FAA played a game of Russian roulette with the flying public, and we all lost. My sons and 344 more people would have been alive today had the FAA done its job. The same FAA management that oversaw the certification of the 737 MAX is still in place today. How can this be? These guys failed the public so badly, and they haven't shown that they are willing to change. We need change before a third, preventable crash. Javier de Luis, brother of Graziella de Luis, an American citizen employed by the United Nations who was killed on board the Ethiopian Airlines 737 MAX crash 2 years ago, told the government officials, I'm here because my sole concern since this crash has been to do whatever I can to prevent it from happening again. I approach this with what is perhaps a unique perspective. I am an aerospace engineer with over 30 years experience designing and flying complex aerospace systems. I hold multiple advanced degrees from MIT, including a master's and PhD from the Department of Aeronautics and Astronautics, and a master's from the Sloan School of Management. I am currently a lecturer at the Institute, but I spent most of my career in industry. I am therefore very familiar not only with the technology but also with the regulatory environment in which the aerospace community operates, all of which failed and allowed this tragedy to happen. With that background, I want to say this. This is unquestionably the worst civil aviation crisis in the history of this country, whether measured by lives lost in the two crashes or by economic impact. The fact that the people who were in charge leading up to and during these crashes and that have gone on the record multiple times in their belief that nothing went wrong, everything is fine, accidents happen, that we should just move on, the fact that they are still in there is simply incomprehensible. It is not just a matter of accountability. Realistically, the chances are zero that the current FAA management will suddenly change their views or alter their behavior. So, therefore, the thing that needs to be changed instead is the current FAA management. We appreciate the meeting with DOT leadership today, said Michael Stamo, but we will not stop until we have new management at FAA. For too many years, they have ignored problems and independent reports showing safety and organizational problems. My daughter Samaya died because of their laziness and their coziness with industry. They make false promises of transparency while refusing to disclose any documents that we requested about the recertification of the MAX. If President Biden and Secretary Buttigieg are serious about aviation safety, They need to appoint a new team that we and the world are able to trust. I trust that the Biden administration will do the right thing for the families here and for the entire flying public, said Robert A. Clifford, founder and senior partner of Clifford Law Offices of Chicago, internationally renowned aviation attorney and lead counsel of the litigation involving the crash of the Boeing 737 MAX 8. These families are to be commended for doing everything they can to avoid a third crash.
IATA welcomes G20 push to restart tourism. The G20 has the right focus and agenda to restart travel and tourism. No industry knows better that safety is paramount than aviation. Data exists to support the targeted measures that the G20 is aiming for. The International Air Transport Association (IATA) welcomed the agreement by the G20 tourism ministers to support the safe restoration of mobility by following the G20 Rome guidelines for the future of tourism. IATA urged G20 governments to quickly follow up their endorsement of the guidelines with actions, particularly the 5-point agenda to safely restore mobility. Sharing information among industry and governments to inform policies and decisions to ensure safe mobility. Agreeing common international approaches to COVID-19 testing, vaccination, certification and information. Promoting digital traveler identity, biometrics and contactless transactions for safe and seamless travel. Providing accessible, consistent, clear and updated information to travelers to encourage and facilitate travel planning and journeys. Maintaining and improving the connectivity, safety and sustainability of transport systems. The G20 has the right focus and agenda to restart travel and tourism. The combination of vaccinations and testing are the drivers to make travel broadly and safely accessible. Moreover, Prime Minister Draghi's promise that Italy is ready to welcome back the world and encouragement to book holidays should be an inspiration to other world leaders. It captures the urgency that is needed to move forward quickly and safely in restoring the freedom to travel, said Willie Walsh, IATA's Director General. Risk management. The emphasis on information sharing, working together to implement practical processes, and data-driven policies is particularly welcome. These are the basis for managing the risks of COVID-19 as we move towards normality. The G20's call for a combined effort of industry and governments to share information moves us towards the risk management framework that is needed for a restart. No industry knows better that safety is paramount than aviation. Effective risk management, based on evidence, data and facts, underpins everything airlines do, and it is a core aviation competency that can help governments safely reopen borders. Over a year into the crisis, and with 6 months of experience with vaccines, data exists to support the targeted measures that the G20 is aiming for. Using data to guide restart plans should gain impetus from the G20 Action Plan, said Walsh. Aviation getting ready. The aviation industry is already making critical progress to be ready. The IATA Travel Pass responds exactly to the need for reliable testing and vaccination certificates verified against the traveler's itinerary. This will be particularly useful in furthering the recommendation for digital solutions. IATA Travel Pass will help prevent fraud and provide a framework for airlines to securely and efficiently manage COVID-19 travel credentials that governments could easily tap into. With over 1 billion doses of the vaccine administered already and a growing number of countries welcoming vaccinated travelers, a system to globally recognize digital vaccine certificates is becoming even more critical. The UNWTO IATA Destination Tracker will give travelers the confidence to plan travel knowing the measures that are in place and requirements to travel. Momentum. The G20 agreements add important support to the building momentum to restore travel. Developments in recent weeks include the following. A travel bubble opened between Australia and New Zealand. The European Commission and the European Parliament each announced efforts to welcome vaccinated travellers, and travellers from low-incidence countries to Europe. The UK is pursuing the gradual resumption of international travel from the 17th of May. Italy announced it was planning to implement the European Green Certificate in May to facilitate opening borders, and France is planning to reopen its borders to international tourists with a health pass from the 9th of June. While these are all important steps that build momentum towards reopening the travel and tourism sector, we need more. People want to fly and exercise the freedom to travel that has been denied by government restrictions. But expensive testing requirements will make travel unaffordable for many, weakening the boost to economies that will occur when borders are reopened. That shouldn't be allowed to happen. Simple, efficient, and affordable programs will be needed to manage the testing and vaccine verification regimes that will underpin a safe restoration of the freedom of mobility, said Walsh.
Travel Manitoba joins the World Tourism Network. Travel Manitoba and Canada joined the World Tourism Network, WTN, as its latest destination member. WTN is ready to work with Manitoba on the reopening of Manitoba and the Canadian travel and tourism industry. Bridget Sandron, Senior Vice President, Strategy and Market Development, took the initiative for Travel Manitoba to join the World Tourism Network. It's known as the place where Canada's heart beat. This is the province of Manitoba in the center of Canada. World Tourism Network is a global initiative that started with the Rebuilding Travel discussion in March 2020 with members in the travel and tourism industry from 127 countries. Manitoba is a Canadian province bordered by Ontario to the east and Saskatchewan to the west. Its landscape of lakes and rivers, mountains, forests, and prairies stretches from northern Arctic tundra to Hudson Bay in the east and southern farmland. Much wilderness is protected in more than 80 provincial parks where hiking, biking, canoeing, camping and fishing are all popular. The capital city Winnipeg is known as a city with a lot of charm. It also hosts the Human Rights Museum. Manitoba means wide open spaces, nature, and good food, all with great people. For thousands of years, the junction of the Red and Assiniboine rivers has been a meeting place. Today, Manitoba's capital city has evolved into the largest city on the Canadian prairies. Winnipeg has been central to Indigenous gatherings, the fur trade, the railway, the grain exchange, and now it's known for its aerospace, technology, and creative industries, among others. WTN chairman said, "I visited Winnipeg a number of times. What a great place to explore. We're looking forward working with Manitoba throughout the reopening process of the Canadian travel and tourism industry. We welcome Manitoba as a new destination member of the World Tourism Network." Travel Manitoba joined the following WTN interest groups: Community Tourism, Cultural Tourism, Equality including LGBTQ, Hospitality Marketing Member, Virtual Community Tourism. For more information on Travel Manitoba, visit www.travelmanitoba.com. For more information on the World Tourism Network, visit wtn.travel. Jamaica to remain under curfew. Weekday curfew hours from Monday through Friday will remain the same on the island. The next 4 weekend curfew hours will change to commencing at 6 p.m. on Saturdays and 2 p.m. on Sundays, ending at 5 a.m. the next day. There will be an all-day curfew instituted on Labor Day, Monday, May 24th. The Prime Minister said that the curfew hours for weekdays, Monday to Friday, will remain at 8 p.m. to 5 a.m., but will be modified for the next 4 weekends. Curfews will now begin at 6 p.m. on Saturdays and at 2 p.m. on Sundays, ending at 5 a.m. the following day, he told the House of Representatives at Gordon House. For Labor Day, which will be observed on Monday, May 24th, Prime Minister Holness said there will be an all-day curfew. Therefore, on Sunday, May 23rd, the curfew will begin at 2 p.m. and it will go right through Monday, and end at 5 a.m. on Tuesday, May 25th, he noted. The curfews are a part of measures implemented under the Disaster Risk Management Act, aimed at curtailing the spread of the coronavirus, COVID-19. Jamaica Tourism Minister, Honorable Edmund Bartlett, has said previously that historically, tourism has shown to have a strong ability to adapt, innovate, and recover from adversity. Policymakers, industry leaders, investors, financial institutions, and providers of innovative solutions are collaborating more closely to make this happen. Also, investments will be made to build infrastructure to facilitate sustainable tourism and sustainable energy consumption. According to Minister Bartlett, the transition to sustainable tourism will also depend on whether the development of tourism is guided by a national strategy comprising policy, regulatory and institutional frameworks with sufficient incentives to stimulate the development of supply and productive capacity where sustainable goods and services are concerned. This approach to sustainable tourism must also be considered from a regional standpoint as well and should also incorporate strategies to fill gaps in the supply side of the equation in Caribbean tourism. Therefore, Caribbean destinations need to take strategic steps to ensure that we retain more of the US dollars that flow into the region as a result of tourism, he said. #rebuilding travel. Waiving the vaccine patent, WTN welcomes the Biden administration's move. Mass production and distributing the COVID-19 vaccine in all countries is essential to keep everyone in this interconnected world safe. The travel and tourism industry knows this better than anyone. The U.S. President Biden said today that he supports waiving intellectual property protections for COVID-19 vaccines such as Pfizer or Moderna. Such a waiver could give developing countries an affordable option to increase the obstacles on ramping up the production of vaccines in developing countries. The Health Without Border initiative by the World Tourism Network welcomes this development. COVID-19 is at its highest levels in countries such as India with thousands dying. No one will be safe until all of us are safe, said U.S. President Biden. 170 heads of state and Nobel Prize holders wrote an open letter to the U.S. president to support the opening of the patent for Viber to allow mass production. It appears U.S. President Biden listened. The president said today he supports waiving intellectual property protections for COVID-19 vaccines such as Pfizer or Moderna. The Health Without Border initiative by the World Tourism Network, WTN, welcomes this initiative. WTN President Dr. Peter Tarlow yesterday was awarded the United States Public Health Service's highest civilian award for his efforts through the World Tourism Network in the fight against COVID-19. Gloria Guevara, CEO of the World Travel and Tourism Council, WTTC, said on May 1 that health experts shared their concern if the patent is shared, some low-quality labs might want to produce it with not the proper quality standards. This will negatively impact people. She added, we need to ask the owners of the patents to work on a massive distribution program and only share patents with those that will support the strategy and program. Today the Biden administration indicated, the U.S. government supports the demand for a suspension of patent protection for corona vaccines. The U.S. Trade Representative Tai said in Washington that the U.S. is in favor of protecting intellectual property. But the pandemic calls for extraordinary measures. Therefore, the U.S. government will work with the World Trade Organization to temporarily lift patent protection to combat COVID-19. More than 100 member states have already made this request at the WTO. The aim is for more companies to be able to manufacture corona vaccines. Important countries of origin of the pharmaceutical industry, however, reject the initiative. The U.S. has also been against it so far. Through the NIH Research Institute, Washington owns the rights to an invention that is considered a prerequisite for modern mRNA vaccines from the manufacturers Moderna and Biotech/Pfizer.
Safe air travel, tips for reducing risk of infection while flying. Book to fly when it is the least crowded. Don't fly if you might be sick. Remember to bring supplies. The latest numbers from the TSA show passenger counts more than 1 million per day every day since March 9 of this year. This is good news for the travel industry and the traveling public. But while consumers are increasingly ready for the excitement of travel to come back into their lives, heightened awareness of hygiene-related safety protocols should remain top of mind. Airlines and airports worldwide have instituted protocols and requirements to help keep the flying public safe. To aid in continued safety vigilance, air travel experts are sharing their top tips for strategies to reduce the risk of infection while flying. Tip number 1. Book to fly when it is the least crowded. Flights leaving between 7 a.m. and 8 a.m. often have smaller passenger numbers. Earlier flights can be filled with deal seekers, and airports are traditionally the busiest between 10 a.m. and 11 a.m. Further reduce exposure to large crowds by flying on Tuesdays or Wednesdays, traditionally the slowest days of the week for air travel. Tip number 2. Do not fly if you might be sick. Your immune system is weaker when you are sick, so if you are feeling under the weather, put off travel to another day. Tip number 3. Use contactless check-in at the airport and everywhere else. Check in for your flight before you arrive at the airport, then use self-check to drop off your bags. Download your boarding pass to your phone and sign up for text alerts to notify you of gate or schedule changes from your travel provider. Tip number 4. Keep social distance at the airport and on the plane. You will want to keep at least 6 feet distance between yourself and other passengers whenever possible. Always keep your mask on and consider wearing a face shield. If you have a longer layover, think about renting an airport pod, if available, to limit the number of people you encounter. Once you get on the plane and have sanitized your space, then sit down and do not leave your seat during the flight. Tip number 5, don't fly if you might be sick. Your immune system is weaker when you are sick. Even if you just have a little under the weather feeling, you are putting yourself at higher risk to catch other illnesses. If tests are available for diseases that make people ill in your area or the area you are going to, then get tested before you start traveling. After all, ruining a trip by being sick is no fun at all. Tip number 6, remember to bring supplies. Prepare to keep yourself healthier by bringing some supplies with you in your carry-on bag. You can bring up to 3 ounces of hand sanitizer. Choose an option that has at least 60% ethanol or 70% isopropyl alcohol. You should also bring a mask to wear on the plane. Wearing gloves helps you avoid contact with contaminated surfaces. You will also want to pack along a small container of disinfecting wipes to wipe down your seat, video screen, buttons, seat belt and other surfaces that you might touch during the flight. With COVID-19 still prevalent, be sure to check local travel regulations and notices for any restrictions, rules, and safety guidelines that may be in place. For additional information, please visit the CDC website for up-to-date health and wellness information.
CDC announces guidance for cruise ship certification. The COVID-19 Conditional Sailing Certificate application is the final step before restricted passenger voyages. Cruise ship operators now have all the necessary requirements and recommendations needed to start simulated voyages before resuming restricted passenger voyages. The CDC will continue to update its guidance and recommendations to specify basic safety standards and public health interventions. With the issuance of these documents, cruise ship operators now have all the necessary requirements and recommendations they need to start simulated voyages before resuming restricted passenger voyages. In addition, this release includes the COVID-19 Conditional Sailing Certificate application, which is the final step before restricted passenger voyages. CDC released the CSO in October 2020 to prevent the further spread of COVID-19 on cruise ships, from cruise ships into communities, and to protect public health and safety. The order introduced a phased approach for the resumption of passenger cruises to mitigate the risk of spreading COVID-19 on board. Today's guidance provides technical instructions for simulated voyages. This includes eligibility and requirements for conducting a simulated trial voyage in preparation for restricted passenger voyages, guidance for inspections of cruise ships conducted by CDC during simulated and restricted passenger voyages, operational procedures to assist cruise ship operators in mitigating the risk of spreading COVID-19, including requirements and recommendations on prevention measures, surveillance for COVID-19 on board, laboratory testing, infection prevention and control, face mask use, social distancing, passenger interactive experiences, and embarkation and disembarkation procedures. In the final phase of the CSO, cruise ships operators with an approved COVID-19 Conditional Sailing Certificate application will be permitted to sail with passengers following the requirements of the CSO. CDC does not anticipate releasing any additional documents for Phase 4. Instead, CDC will be updating online documents to incorporate changes to quarantine, testing, color status, and lessons learned from simulated voyages. CDC is committed to working with the cruise industry and seaport partners to resume cruising following the phased approach outlined in the CSO. This goal aligns with the prospective resumption of passenger operations in the United States by mid-summer, expressed by many major cruise ship operators and travelers. Since April 12, 2021, CDC and senior leadership from other relevant federal agencies have engaged in twice-weekly meetings with representatives from various cruise lines. The objectives of these meetings have been to engage in dialogue and exchange information with individual cruise line representatives regarding the impact of vaccines and other scientific developments since the CSO was issued. Participants were also given opportunities to ask operational questions about the CSO and publish technical instructions. COVID-19 vaccines play a critical role in the safe resumption of passenger operations, but not all cruise ship operators have announced plans to mandate passenger vaccinations. As more people are fully vaccinated and more drug therapeutics are available, the phased approach allowed CDC to incorporate these advancements into planning for safe resumption of cruise ship travel. CDC recommends that all port personnel and travelers, passengers, and crew get a COVID-19 vaccine when a vaccine is available to them. CDC acknowledges that it is not possible for cruising to be a zero-risk activity for spread of COVID-19. While cruising will always pose some risk of COVID-19 transmission, CDC is committed to ensuring that cruise ship passenger operations are conducted in a way that protects crew members, passengers, and port personnel, particularly with emerging COVID-19 variants of concern. CDC will continue to update its guidance and recommendations to specify basic safety standards and public health interventions based on the best scientific evidence available. For more information about COVID-19 and cruise ships, please visit www.cdc.gov and www.cdc.gov. For an infographic on phased approach, visit www.cdc.gov. #Rebuilding Travel.
Beaches is all about families, and keeping your family safe is our #1 priority. That's why we created our Platinum Protocol of Cleanliness, setting a new standard of excellence in health and safety protocols to give you a worry-free destination wedding of a lifetime. Beaches was built on connection. Connecting with family and friends, celebrating old times, and creating new beginnings. And we know the love you have for your family and having them there for the most special time of your life is what's most important. At Beaches, you can still have that happily ever after with a fully customized destination wedding surrounded by the people who mean the most to you. You can feel safe saying "I do" on a lush tropical garden, or walking down a white sand aisle with a calm blue sea as your backdrop. Our wedding venues are found in wide open spaces, nature-made for celebrating your love. And while we've always led the industry in health and safety protocols, our resorts are even safer now than ever, giving you a wedding free of worries, surrounded by love. That's why we've reduced the capacity of our venues and put more physical distance between guests. Instead of tables for 8 at your reception, we'll seat only 6 guests per table. We've eliminated buffets and specialty food stations, so all food will be plated and served by Beaches staff wearing masks. We're even offering live stream service of your wedding ceremony, so your friends and family who can't travel right now can still share in your special day. Once the vows have been exchanged, the honeymoon of a lifetime begins. And we're taking every measure necessary to ensure your health and safety during your stay at Beaches. As part of the Sandals Resorts family, we've followed in their footsteps in setting a new standard of excellence with our Platinum Protocol of Cleanliness. Together with the extensive research from local ministries and health officials, the Center for Disease Control, and the World Health Organization, Beaches has instituted advanced hygiene practices across 18 key touchpoints. A triple check system that includes inspecting, cleaning, and sanitizing hard surfaces and common areas every 20 minutes. Adding auto-dispensing hand sanitizing stations throughout the resort. To ensure the utmost safety, Beaches will be using hospital-grade disinfectants, electrostatic sprayers for advanced cleaning, UV lighting equipment to inspect cleanliness, and air duct sanitization for each room before every guest's arrival. We've gone so far as to steam clean and sanitize carpeting and flooring prior to arrivals, and placing personal hand sanitizers in every guest room. For added safety, all staff members are required to wear protective face gear at all times. And from now on, guests can check in online at home, so they can bypass the front desk and go directly to their rooms. Stricter physical distancing protocols have also been put in place in every part of the resort. Chlorine and pH levels at all our pools and water parks are monitored every 2 hours, and we've taken added measures to protect the health and safety of your family. Our kids' camps facilities are sanitized before and after each use. And all of our professional nannies carry pocket-sized bottles of hand sanitizer. Our tween and teen hangouts, including the Xbox Play Lounge and Trench Town, are sanitized before and after each use with hospital-grade disinfectants. In addition, all our spa facilities and sports equipment will be sanitized before and after use to protect the health and safety of our guests and their families. Both Sandals and Beaches are committed to providing strict compliance and implementation of these safety protocols. So much so that we've created a dedicated quality inspection team at each resort to make sure all safety measures are adhered to. We can't wait to help you make your dreams come true with a destination wedding at Beaches. And while you're focused on your new life together, surrounded by those you love the most, we'll take care of everything else.
Sandals Resorts and ASTA reveal key travel trends ahead of summer rush. In celebration of National Travel Advisor Day, Sandals Resorts partnered on a research study with the American Society of Travel Advisors ASTA to examine travelers' attitudes and behaviors ahead of the expected rush on summer travel. Key insights are provided on travel advisor usage and explores destinations, trends, and travel preferences. The research highlights the importance of trusted advice going hand in hand with trusted brands. The information focuses on the changing landscape for travel with an eye towards helping advisors understand the importance of their role as client advocates. The study, the first joint research project between Sandals Resorts and ASTA, provides key insights on travel advisor usage and explores destinations, trends, and travel preferences. Travelers are eager to make up for missed moments and get back to the fun of dreaming about and finally, taking their vacations. This research highlights the importance of trusted advice going hand in hand with trusted brands as part of their travel planning journey, said Sandals Resorts Executive Vice President Global Sales and Industry Relationships Gary Sadler. Expertise matters. We have long celebrated these pros whose guidance makes travel and traveling simply better, especially today. Thanks to our partners at Sandals Resorts, this year we have good news to celebrate on National Travel Advisor Day, said Zane Kirby, President and CEO of ASTA. This research focuses on the changing landscape for travel with an eye towards helping advisors understand the importance of their role as advocates for their clients. The good news for travel advisors is that we are seeing a strong increase in overall demand for travel, and as a result travelers are turning to the experts for advice. Key findings. Use of travel advisors. More than 1/4 of travelers, 27%, always or often used a travel advisor prior to the pandemic. The more trips a traveler took in the past 3 years, the more likely he or she used a travel advisor. Among those who took 6 or more trips in the past 3 years, 39% always/often used a travel advisor compared to 12% who took 1 or 2 trips. After the pandemic is over, nearly half of travelers, 44%, are more likely to use a travel advisor. Not surprisingly, nearly all travelers, 94%, who always/often used a travel advisor before the pandemic are likely to use one after the pandemic. Among those who sometimes or rarely used a travel advisor pre-pandemic, 44% are likely to use one after the pandemic. People who always or often used a travel advisor are more ready to travel within the next 3 months, 72%, compared to non-travel advisor users, 47%. People who use a travel advisor are more likely to stay at an all-inclusive resort, 33% versus 16%. Go abroad as soon as they can, 35% versus 18% of non-travel advisor users. Take a cruise, 36% versus 10%. Travel preferences. 45% of people who always use a travel advisor rank quality time without kids as a top priority compared to 13% of non-travel advisor users. 70% of people who use a travel advisor rank having a leisurely dinner as an important aspect of their next vacation compared to 51% of non-travel advisor users. When it comes to traveling with a significant other, travelers who use a travel advisor seem more inclined to focus on aspects of their trip that augment quality time and worry-free planning. 53% of travelers desire quiet time on the beach or by the pool. More than half of travelers are ready to travel now, 29%, or within the next 3 months, 25%. By the end of 2021, all but 19% of travelers will be ready to travel again. Among those who always/often used a travel advisor pre-pandemic, 72% will be ready to travel within 3 months. Among those who took 6 or more trips in the past 3 years, 2/3, 66%, will be ready to travel within 3 months.
Moving the needle with non-travel advisor users. Complimentary room upgrade. 55% of people who never use a travel advisor rank a complimentary room upgrade as important. This is a potential area of opportunity for travel advisors who are marketing to new clients. Free breakfast anyone? 72% of people who never use a travel advisor rank free breakfast as an important amenity on their next trip. This is another area of opportunity for travel advisors' marketing efforts. Large percentages of travelers also desire for gratuities be included 48%, to enjoy personalized experiences 44%, or to receive complimentary fine dining 44%. Relationships and trust. 55% of travelers who have never used a travel advisor are more likely to use one if it means they have access to the travel advisor's special relationships and insider access. 51% of travelers who have never used a travel advisor are more likely to use one because the travel advisor puts the client's interest above their own. Travel destinations. The desirability of travel destinations has changed during the pandemic. Although nearly two-thirds of travelers, 62%, desire going on vacation in the USA, nearly half, 45%, would like to go to Europe, followed by 44% wishing to travel to the Caribbean. This is in stark contrast to a survey of travelers conducted by IATA in January 2020 where 75% of travelers planned to take a trip within the USA and 17% had Europe on their itinerary. The 44% of travelers who want to take a trip to the Caribbean this year represent a 33% increase from January 2020. Desired traveler activities have also changed during the pandemic. The most desirable activities involve visiting historical places 53%, pristine beaches and sunsets 49%, or unique dining experiences 47%. Only 29% say they would like to visit a big city. More news about sandals.